Hello and welcome to Pixel Magic Tutorials. I am your host Geekman, and today we're going to learn how to create the Thor Ragnarok text effect in Photoshop. Now, a couple of assumptions that I need to get out of the way right off the bat. Number one, I am using Photoshop CC 2017. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, some of the effects may not work as expected. Second, I am using Windows. So if you're using a Mac, when I say hit the Control key on the keyboard, that means hit the Command key. And when I say hit the Alt key on the keyboard, that means hit the Option key. So with that out of the way, let's get started by hitting Control N on the keyboard to bring up the new image dialog box. Now, I'm going to name this Ragnarok text, and that's what we're making, so it's very easy. The width that we want to use is 3,840 pixels, height is 2,160 pixels, resolution 150 pixels per inch, RGB color 8-bit. The background contents, we want that to be black, so click on the little color icon there and make it all zeros, or just drag all the way down to the bottom left. Hit OK, and then the color profile I am using is Adobe RGB 1998, which is the working RGB that I use, and square pixels. So let's hit Create, and we are now ready to begin putting in our text. The first thing that we want to do now that we have our image ready to begin is we want to change our foreground and background colors way over here to the default black and white. And you do that by hitting D on the keyboard or by clicking on this little black and white icon over here. And then what we want to do is make white the foreground color. So you click on X on your keyboard or the little double-edged arrow here, which will swap the foreground and background to make white the foreground and black the background. Once we have that done, we now need to input our text. Now, the font that I'm using is a font called Modi Thorson. You can find a link to download it for free in the description below. Now, this font does not exactly match the logo used in the Thor Ragnarok posters, but it is as close as I can find for a free font. So feel free to use this or any other font that you might want. Now, we have to get to our font, our text tool. So you hit T on the keyboard like so, or you click on the text tool over here on your toolbar. And as you can see under character here, I have Modi Thorson. I am using it at 215 points. And nothing else really matters other than making sure that the color we're using is pure white. And if it helps, you can click here on the all caps button, and that will make your text all caps, which makes it easier to mimic the look of the Thor Ragnarok logo in the posters. So once you have all that set, you want to go towards the center of your document and click, and then you want to put in your text. And as always, I am using Pixel Magic. Okay, the next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that the kerning or spacing in between your text, your letters, is evenly spaced, or at least spaced well enough that you feel it looks good to your eye. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more room, and the way that you do that is you put your cursor in between the letters that you want to make larger or smaller, the space between them larger or smaller, and then you hold down Alt and you use the left and right arrow buttons to move things further apart or closer together. So I'm going to give a little bit more room there, and then I am going to go over here to the M and the A, and just like in the Thor Ragnarok logo where the R and the A kind of touch each other, I am going to make the M and the A overlap like so. Then I'm going to make the G and the I and the C uniformly spaced, and that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to hit the little check mark up here because I am done. Then I'm going to go to my Move tool, that is V on the keyboard or the first tool up here on your toolbar, and then I can click and drag to the center of my document. You'll see these two guides show up in the center, and it is now centered on my document. The next thing that we need to do is something that may seem a little scary at first, but trust me, we'll be in and out really quick. You'll barely notice that we were there, and it won't scare you at all. And that is, we're going to go to 3D. Okay, we're going to go into the 3D options of Photoshop to do a little bit of 3D extrusion of this text to make it look more like that extruded text used in the Thor Ragnarok posters. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go up here to the little 3D button up here. We're going to click on that, and we're going to go down to New 3D Extrusion from Selected Layer. Okay, we're going to click on that. Now it's going to say you are about to create a 3D layer. Would you like to switch to the 3D workspace? You can click yes. I'll show you how to get out of that in just a moment. And then it might pop up this embedded profile mismatch. It doesn't really matter what we're doing here. Use the embedded profile is better. I find that works fine. It doesn't really change anything with what we're doing here. So just hit OK. And then you will see that you have this new 3D working space with the new properties up here and the 3D panel down here. You don't have to worry about much of this. You only have to worry about a couple of things. Number one, the extrusion depth here. Okay, we want to make that only 125. See how shallow this got? That's what we're looking for. And then up here, we want to make sure that we uncheck cast shadows. We don't want to cast any shadows. Okay, then what we need to do is we need to swap the forward-looking view that we have here with this view here, which is a top-down view. And you do that by going up to this window here, and you click on this little swap main and secondary view icon in this little window. So we just click there, and you'll see that we have now switched to this view, which is really what we want to do. Okay, and then if over here you don't see that center bar that gives you the X, Y, and Z axis, okay, that's fine. Because you see here on my cursor, it says X, right? We can't do anything with this at this point. But if you click once, you'll see this pop up. And now we can rotate around the X axis if we hit the right spot on this, which is exactly what we are doing right now. And what you want to do is you want to click on rotate around the X axis, and you want to click and drag up until you get to about 12 to 14 degrees. Okay, I happen to like about 14. I like a little bit more bottom showing, but it depends on what you like. So I'm going to go up here to 14, and that's going to be good. And it looks like you can see more of the text here. But if you look up here on your little forward view, you can see that it is now showing you the bottom of your text, and the 3D extrusion is still showing, and that's what you're looking for. And if you want to see how it really looks, you can then swap the main and secondary view again by clicking there, and you can now see that you can see the bottom of your text, which looks very much like the Thor Ragnarok logo in the posters, where they're showing you a little bit of that bottom of the Ragnarok word. So this is all that we needed to do here in the 3D space. I told you it would be quick. I told you it would be easy. Did I lie? No, I did not. So once we are done with that, we can get out of this 3D space. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go way up here in the upper right-hand corner where you see this weird looking little box. Click on the little arrow and you'll see all of these different views of your workspace. And all we want to do is go back to Essentials, or if you have set up your own workspace that you happen to work with, you can then go to that one if you have saved as a new workspace. I have not done that because I do a lot of tutorials and I like to keep it as basic as possible for when I do my tutorials. So I'll just go back to Essentials. And that brings us right back to what we are familiar with when we are working on our images. Okay, so now we don't need any of this anymore. And you'll see that since this is a 3D layer, it will retain this 3D look as long as I click on that layer. But if I click on background, that goes away. So that's fine. Like I said, we didn't need to do too much in 3D, just a little bit to get the look that we wanted. Now that we're done with it, what we need to do now is we need to isolate the front of our letters. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to Select, and we're going to go to Color Range, okay? And we are going to select Color Range. Now, what you want to do is make sure Localize Color Clusters is unchecked. Fuzziness, you want it to be about 40. And then all you have to do is use this little eyedropper, click on the white part of the letters, and you will see it pop up here, and that has selected all of the white of our logo or our text. Hit OK, and you will see an outline, the little marching ants, that show you only have the front part of our image or our text, which is exactly what we want. So now what we want to do is click back here on the Pixel Magic layer, and you want to create a new layer above that. And we want to rename that layer face. Okay, so that we have the face of our text. And in that face, you now want to fill that with white. Okay, you see that we have white as our foreground. So all we have to do is hit Alt and Backspace, and we have now filled that with white. So if I turn off the 3D layer, you'll see that the extrusion has gone away, but we still have the front of our text. Okay, we can bring back the extrusion, and what we can do is get rid of the marching ants by hitting Control and D on the keyboard to deselect the front of our text. Now, we are done with all of the hard part. Now all we have to do is apply 2 layer styles, one to our 3D text and one to our face. So let's start with the 3D text back here. All we have to do is go down here to our layer styles, and what we're going to do is put on a gradient overlay. Okay, and the gradient overlay that we are going to put on our background 3D extrusion is going to be a blend mode of overlay. Dither is unchecked. Opacity is 100%. Gradient here is going to be a custom gradient. So let me show you how you do that. You just click on the first color down here. You're going to change the color to 5B0000. Okay, and then you're going to click on the rightmost color, and that color is going to be FF0000, which is pure red. You hit OK, you hit OK again, and that is all the color that we have to have there. Reverse is unchecked, align with layer is checked, linear is the style, angle is going to be 90 degrees, scale is going to be 100%, and we are done with our background layer. Hit OK, and that is now done. You can then close up the little effects there and then click on face. And we now only have to do the face of our text. Now this is a little bit more involved, but don't worry, we're going to walk through it nice and slow so that you can get it. All right, the first thing that we're going to do here is go down to our layer styles, and we're going to add in a stroke. Okay, now the stroke that we want here, the size is going to be a 10. The position is going to be inside, it's going to be normal, it's going to be opacity 100%, and overprint will be checked. The gradient, it's going to be a fill type of gradient, and the gradient that we're going to do is going to be a white to transparent gradient. So just click on the gradient itself to bring up the gradient editor. We're going to go here to the first stop, and we're going to change that to pure white. That's all Fs. And the second stop here, we're going to make sure it's all white. There it goes. And then up here, this is your opacity. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the opacity here 100. We're going to make the opacity over here 0. So we're going to go there, we're going to make the opacity 0. Okay, and what we're going to do with this first one here, that is the 100% opacity, we're going to make that at location 50. Okay, that's all that we have to do there. Then we're going to hit OK, and then we're going to make sure that we are on linear, align with layer is on. We're going to make our angle here is going to be -90, and the scale that we have here is going to be at 100%. 100%. So that is all that we need for stroke. Then what we need is 2 gradient overlays. Okay, we need a top gradient overlay and we need a bottom gradient overlay. Now, this gets a little bit involved, so please bear with me and try and follow along. If you can't, in the description below, I will put the opacity stops for this particular gradient in the description below. So you can look at that if you need to, but it won't make sense unless you follow along. So, okay, so gradient overlay here. What we need to do is we need to change this blend mode here to multiply. Okay, and then we need to make this 100%. The gradient, we'll come back to that in just a moment. What we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that we are at linear. Okay, align with layer is checked, reverse is unchecked. Angle here is going to be -90, and we're going to be at scale of 100%. So now let's go back to the gradient itself. Now the gradient itself is going to be pretty involved, it will seem, but it's pretty easy to do. I've done all the hard work of figuring out where everything goes. So the first thing that we need to do is click on our first color here, and we're going to change that color to 003 C55. So this nice rich blue here. Okay, then we're going to hit OK. Then we're going to go to the rightmost color here, and we're going to click on that, and we're going to change that color to 780000. Okay, then we're going to hit OK. Now these two colors are not in their proper spots. What we're going to do is we're going to change the blue location here. We're going to change that location to 60. And the red color here, we're going to change that location to 78. Like I said, I did all the hard work here of figuring out where these things go, so you don't have to do that hard work. Now comes the real hard part. See these two guys up here? These are our opacity stops. What we need to do is move this way over here, and we're going to change that opacity to 0. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to make 14 of these 0 opacity stops. So just click on one, and then click and click and click and click and click until you get 14. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and let's just go down here, 14. Okay, so then you click on this one, the rightmost one that you've made. Okay, and all we have to do is start changing their locations. So the location of this one is going to be 55. Okay, the location of the second one here is going to be at 59. So you got to click on location, and you're going to make that 59. The next one here is going to be at 62. The next one here is going to be at 66. This one here is going to be at 70. This guy right, whoops, okay, that's fine. That one right there is going to be at 75. I don't need this one anymore. This guy right here is going to be at 78. This guy right here is going to be at 82. This guy over here is going to be at 84. And it seems pretty weird, but trust me, it will make sense in just a moment. So this guy over here is going to be at 88. And this guy right here is going to be at 90. This guy over here is going to be at 93. This guy over here is at 95. And the last guy here is at 98. Now, like I said, that seems pretty weird because they're all the 0 opacity colors, right? There's no color there. They're hiding everything. This right here is your 100% opacity color stop. So what we need to do now is make 7 of those because they're going to go in between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. They're going to go in between our 0 opacity color stops, and that is going to give us the lines down the bottom of our Ragnarok text. So the first one here, we're going to make that location 55. The next one here, we're going to make that location 64. The next one here, we are going to make that location 72. This one over here, we are going to make that location is going to be 80. This guy over here is going to be a location of 86. This guy over here, oh, let's see, he's going to be a location of 92. And just to prove that I'm not sexist, this little girl over here, she is going to be at 97. So now we have our lines on the bottom of our text that look very similar to the lines that are used in the Thor Ragnarok text. Now, the next thing that we need to do is hit OK here. Everything else here is set up. We don't need that anymore. And what we're going to do is make a new gradient overlay. So let's click on the little plus icon there. Click on the bottommost one because the top one we want to be these color lines. And that gradient overlay we're going to make a little change to also. This is going to be normal. Okay, it's going to be 100%. The gradient itself we will change in just a moment, so let's leave that alone. The style here is going to be linear. Align with layer is checked. We're going to leave it at -90 and at 100%. So the only thing we have to do now is our gradient. So let's go up here, and what we're going to do, you know what? Before we even do that, let's just clear this out by clicking there. Okay, that gives us something easier to work with. Just a standard 2-color, 2-tone gradient. Okay, and what we're going to do here is we're going to change, we're going to add in a white over here, So this should be pure white, all Fs, okay? And that one, and this guy right here, let's do the first one and then another one here. That's fine. Okay, so we need 4 color stops. And what we're going to do is color stop number 1 here, we're going to change that color to 159, okay, ADF, A, D, and F. Okay, this nice blue. We're going to hit OK, and there is our first color. The next color has to be pure white. The next color after that, we have to change that color because color stop number 3 is going to be 5E. What is that? C6, FB. FB. So this other light blue. Hit OK. And then this last color stop over here is going to be pure white. Hit OK. So this is how this is going to work. What we have to do is just change where these guys live. So color number 1, this dark blue here, we're going to put that at location 21, like so. This white one right here, we're going to make that at color stop 32. Okay, the next blue that we have here, we're going to make that color stop 42. And the last white is going to be at location 100. That's all that we need there, and that is all the layer styles that we need to create this effect. Hit OK, and you now have your Thor Ragnarok styled text. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe. I do new tutorials every Tuesday. Once again, I am Geekman, signing off for Pixel Magic Tutorials.